In this video I'll show you how to create an API to register a new user. Then we'll log in the user and save their session. Let's first install the npm packages. Axios for calling the backend API. Mongoose for accessing mongoDB. Next.auth for authentication and saving session. bcrypt.js for hashing the password before storing it in DB. After these packages are installed, install types for bcrypt.js in dev dependencies. First we'll create the Signup API. I have installed mongoDB locally along with Compass, as it makes development faster, and you can work offline. You can check my video of how to install mongoDB on macOS. If you don't want to install it on your system, you can use the cloud. Open mongodb.com, click on Try Free button. Here create your account. After logging in you can see that there is a default project. If you want to use it you can make its cluster active. But you might not be able to create a new one. As in free version you cannot have more than one cluster. I will delete this project and create a new one, so that I can show how to create a new project as well as a cluster. Click New Project. Here enter project name, and click Next. Add any members if you want to. Then create project. Inside the project, from Database tab, click on Build a Database button. Select the free option. Leave the default options. You can update the region if you want. I'll update the cluster name. Then click Create Cluster. Create a user for your DB. Select from where you like to connect from. I'll keep the default. Here add your IP address. I'll add 0.0.0.0. This means that all networks can access this. Now click Finish and close. It will take some time to create. Here click Connect. Then connect your application. And copy this connection string. Open your Next project in any text editor. Create a .env file in the root of your project. Now create an environment variable to store the copied URI. Replace this with your mongoDB user password. Since I'm using mongoDB locally, I will use this URI. Now we'll start to write function to connect to our DB. In the root of your project create a lib folder. In it create a new file mongodb.ts. Here import mongoose. Then get connection URI from process.env. Then check if this is empty, then throw an error. Otherwise we'll write a function to connect to DB. Here add a try-catch statement. Inside the try, we'll do await mongoose.connect. It will return a response, destruct connection from it. Pass the URI to connect method. Connection.readyState tells us whether the state is disconnected, connecting, etc. ReadyState1 means it is connected successfully, so in that case we'll promise.resolve, true. In catch we'll do promise.reject, error. This function is complete, now we'll create user model. Create a new folder, name it models. In it create a file user.ts. From mongoose, import schema, model, and models. Create a new schema, I'll name it user schema. Our user will have an email, of type string. Email will be unique. Give required true, and along with it custom error message. In match we'll give a regex, to check that email matches valid email address or not. Also give custom error message. Then we'll add full name. Its type is also string. Required true, and give custom error message. I want full name to have a minimum length of 4. And a maximum length of 30. I'll also provide custom messages if length is not in this range. Then the user will have a password. It will also be a string. It will be a required field. Then provide select false. Select false means that when we run find queries the user in response will not have password key. This is for security so that password is not exposed from APIs. Now we'll create const user. If there is existing model we'll use it by models.user, else we'll create a new one. The logical or operator will return existing model if there is one, otherwise create a new one. Then export default user. Now we'll write our API. In the API folder inside Pages, create a new folder auth. Here create a file signup.ts. Let's create a handler which will be a async arrow function. Export default handler. It will get two parameters. First request, give it the type of Next API request. Import it from Next. Second parameter is response, which is of type Next API response. Now we'll connect to DB, make sure to import it from lib folder. Catch the error and send in response. If request.method is post, we'll write code to sign up our user. Else we'll send response with status code 405, that is method not allowed. And send error message as JSON. In the if we'll add another check. If request body is empty, then return from here and give a response. With status code 400, that is bad request. And JSON error message. Otherwise to struct full name, email, and password from request body. Then we'll check if user already exists in our DB or not. Await user, import it from models. Then use the findOne method to find by email. If user is already present, return response with status 409, that is conflict. And in JSON give an error. If user didn't exist in DB, then we'll check the length of password. I want password to be longer than 6 characters. Return error in response. We didn't add length check for password in our model, because before storing it to DB we are converting it to a hash, which will be longer than 6 characters. Now hash the password. Hashed password equals to await hash, import it from bcrypt.js. Here provide password and a salt value. Then do user.create and pass the data. For full name and email, we are using ES6 shorthand as key is same as variable name. But in password we are passing a variable with different name. These keys will be same as the one we defined in our user schema. Second parameter of the create method will be an arrow function. It will get two parameters, error, of type unknown, and data of type iUser, which we need to create in our types index file. Here export interface iUser. It will have ID of type string, email which is a string, and full name also a string. Make sure to import iUser here. Now to handle the errors, we'll check if error is not empty. And it is an instance of mongoose.error.validation error. Make sure to import mongoose. Inside this if, we will return the error. MongoDB will return array of errors. But we only want to show one error at a time. So we will loop through the errors. And just return the first response from array. Give status 409 and an error give the message. Outside the if condition create a user object. With email, data.email. Full name, data.fullname. And ID, data.id. Create API also returns password in response which I don't want to send in my API. So I just get the data I need and create a new variable. And return response with status 201 that is created success. And success true, along with the user object. With this our API is complete. Now we'll test our API. Open Postman, enter your request URL, domain/API/auth/signup. In pages we have API folder, and inside we have auth and then signup file. So we give this URL in here. First let's try to call the API with get method. We get method not allowed in response. Now change the method to post and send request without any data. We get data missing message. Select body, then raw, and then here select JSON. Give an email. Full name. And password which is not 6 characters long. It will give an error. If we increase password length and then send the request, new user will be created. If I open Compass and refresh, we can see user is added in DB. Now if we send the same request again, it says user already exists. Now open the code where you have written your sign-up form. Handle signup is the function called on submit of the form. Here I'm validating the data. If it is valid, we'll call our Signup API. But first let's create a new state to show error message after form submission. It will be of type string, initial value empty string. Also create a state for loading, with initial value of false. And create a const router equals use router. Make sure to import it as well. Now in the handle signup, add a try catch. Inside try, first set loading true. Make sure that this function is async. Const API response equals await Axios. Also import Axios. Axios.post. First param will be the API URL. And second is data. That is email, full name and password. We'll use optional chaining. And check that is API response.data.success is true then. Save user in session. We'll write code for that in a while, but let's first handle error. Give it the type unknown. Then check if error is an instance of Axios error. Import Axios error. Then get message from error.response.data.error. And set submit error. I have named stateSetter set submission by mistake. I'm renaming it to set submit error. Outside the catch set loading to false. We'll now test it from our sign-up form. Enter full name. Give email. Enter password. And confirm password. Now if I click sign up, and open Compass and refresh. We can see a new user is added in DB. Now if we click sign up again it should show error. To achieve that, I'll add some code below sign up button. If submit error is not empty then show it. Error text is the style component I have created and imported. You can check my code, I'll add GitHub link in description below. We can see the error below our button. Now we'll go back to our handle signup function, and in the case of success, we'll save the session and redirect to home page. For that we'll create a new file in Pages, API, auth. Name this file like a dynamic route in Next.js. Within square brackets, add 3 dots then write next-auth, and add ts extension after the square bracket. Here import next-auth. Then import credentials provider from next-auth/providers/credentials. Now we'll export default next-auth. And here we need to pass some options. Const options of type next-auth options, import it from next-auth. Pass this options object in here. First option we give will be providers array. Next-auth provides different providers, but for this video we'll use credentials provider. Credentials provider will also take some options. First is ID, that we will use to call the provider. Then name of the provider. In credentials object we'll pass the fields in our login form, it will also create HTML form. But I want to use my custom form, so we'll override it below. I'll give email, with a label email, and type text. And then password, with a label and type. Then we need to create a function authorize, that get credentials and parameters. If I didn't pass credentials object above, later we'll get error in this function. Because it will not know which properties credentials object will have. Here we will check that login credentials are valid or not. First connect to database and in catch we throw the error. To find the user, we need to import user model. Await user.findOne and pass the email. Get email from credentials.email. We'll also add .select, plus password. We have done select false in our schema. Therefore password will not be returned in find one response. So we need to add this select so that we can also compare password before logging in. If user is empty, then throw error, invalid credentials. If email was present in DB, we have to check that user entered the valid password or not. Const is password correct. Equals to await compare. Make sure to import compare from bcrypt. Pass both passwords as arguments. One that is coming in the form and other password is we get from user object. The exclamation mark dot is the non-null assertion. This is to tell the compiler that credentials.password cannot be null or undefined here, so don't complain about it. If is password correct is not true, then throw invalid credentials error. Finally, return the user from authorize function. Outside the providers array, we give an option that is pages. Here I tell which page I want to use for sign in. Login file is present in my pages folder. Another option we pass is session. Here give strategy JWT. Now we'll write two callbacks. First is JWT, it is an async arrow function. In the parameters, destruct token and user. If user is not undefined, then add it to token.user. Then return the token. Now create a session callback. In the parameters, destruct session and token. Get token.user as iUser. Session.user equals to user. Then return the session. We also need to add a variable in env file that is next-auth_secret. If we see the next-auth documentation in the options section, you can read that we need to provide a secret. Either we can provide secret key here, in the option object, or give this variable in env file. To create a secret we can use this command, I'll add it in the description below. If we run this command in terminal, we get a string. Add it to env file. Now open app file from Pages folder. Here import session provider from next-auth/react. Now wrap your entire app with the session provider. To this session provider we need to pass session prop, which we'll get from Pages props. After this we'll write a helper to login user. Export const login user equals to a async arrow function. In this function we'll pass email and password of type login user params, which we'll first create in types. In types index file, I'll create interface. And give email type string. And password also string. Here use the interface and make sure to import it. Const response equals to await sign in. Import sign in from next-auth/react. The first parameter to it is the ID we gave to our provider. Then we pass an object. Here redirect false means that we want to disable default redirection, and handle response, and in case of error show it on the same page. Then pass email and password. And return the response. Now in my signup form, inside the handle signup function, we'll call the login user helper. Make sure to import it. Pass email and password to it. Data is the state I have declared above. Now we'll check if login response is not undefined. And login response is not okay. Then set the submit error state. And if the error is undefined, set empty string. In the else statement we redirect to home page. We have already declared this router above. I'll also pass a disabled prop to my button. so that when API is being called, user cannot click button again. Pass loading in disabled prop. Because we set it to true before calling the API. And make it false after we get the response. Now I'll show you the button component. I have added disabled prop here. Container is a styled button as I have used styled component, in which I have accessed this props and added some conditions. For background color, text color. I have also added a check for cursor. If button is disabled, then it is not allowed, else pointer. Similarly, set background color on hover based on disabled prop. Now we'll open the browser and sign up a new user. You can see briefly the hover color changes when button is disabled. And we are redirected to home page. But in the Navbar it still shows login, but we want to show profile icon after login. And if the user is logged out, only then show login link in Navbar. I'll open the nav component. And import use session from next-auth/react. And get data as session from use session. And where we have our login link, add a condition. That if session is not empty, then add a new link for profile. I am using bsfill personfill from React Icons as my profile icon. And giving it a size of 30. If session is undefined or null, then show login link. Make sure to import the React icon. Now if I sign up again, you can see the profile icon instead of login link. As this video is not focused on UI design, I have already written some code for profile. I'll show you how I have added this logout button, but you can check my code for more details. In Pages folder, create a file profile.tsx. Here I have used a component. In this component I get data as session from use session. I am checking if session is not undefined or null. Then show a logout button. And on click of the logout button, I have called signout method from next-auth/react. I also want to show more information. For that I have already created some styled components. First I'll show the username, get it from session.user.fullname. And then we'll show the email from session.user.email. As we saved user object in session, now we can access it here. Here you can see the user information has displayed successfully. Now we'll write code to log in our user. It is very simple as we have already written the helper function. We just need to call it in on submit of login form. I'll open my login form component. Create a state for loading, initially false. And submit error, initially empty string. Then create a router from use router, make sure to import it. Handle login is the function called on submit. Make sure this function is async. Here add a try-catch statement. Inside the try, create a const login response. Equals await login user, pass email and password to it. Make sure to import login user. Now check if login response is not undefined. And login response is not okay. Then set the submit error state. And if the error is undefined, set empty string. Else redirect to home page by doing router.push. In the catch, check if error is an instance of Axios error. Make sure to import Axios error. Then get error from error.response.data.error. And set it to submit error state. Before calling the login function, also set the loading state to true. And after the catch, set it to false. Give disabled equals loading in button component. Under the button we'll check if submit error is not empty, then show it. I want to make one change to button component. If it is disabled, then show processing, else show the title. Now let's log into our app. On profile page you can see the name and email as well. If I log out and pass invalid credentials, you can also see the error message. Lastly, I want to restrict the profile route to only authorized users. For that, create a file in the root of your project. Name it middleware.ts. Here export default from next-auth/middleware. And export config with matcher/profile. Now if I refresh the profile page, it will redirect us to login page. But if I log in, I am able to access to profile page. And with this we have successfully restricted it to authorized users only. Please share my video, hit the like button. If you have any questions or suggestion, leave a comment, and support my channel by subscribing it. The answer to quiz number 1 from my Instagram post is option C. Find the link to my Instagram in description below for more content.